Take me to Ron's body shop. So here we are. We've got the latest full self-driving beta, 11.4.6. We got 11.4.7 coming out next weekend, supposedly. And, I think we're close to a ChatGPT moment. So, what was the ChatGPT moment? Well, OpenAI was working on GPT for a long time. Obviously, there was GPT-1 and GPT-2 and GPT-3 and GPT-4. But nobody really noticed all that much, at least not on a consumer level. Maybe if you were a programmer or a nerd, you might know what GPT-3 was. But most people didn't. Even though they were working on it and improving it for a long time, you could access it via the API and do some pretty interesting things. But the awareness of it was pretty low. Then when they launched the ChatGPT interface and they also updated the model to GPT 3.5 Turbo, people really started taking notice. All of a sudden they were like, holy shit, I can't believe that there's AI that's capable of this already. It seems to be able to reason, to understand in a way that I've never seen from a computer. And now people are using ChatGPT for all kinds of things. If you're a programmer, I think it's indispensable. No matter what you do, just try talking to ChatGPT, especially GPT-4. Pay the $20 a month and try GPT-4 and just start talking to it. Think out loud, tell it what you're doing, and I think you'll be pretty amazed by what the capability of today's deep learning systems is, especially the cutting edge ones. So I think we're really in a similar moment here where the autopilot team has been working on this for a long time, for years and years, and the industry's been working hard for years and years. And there's been a lot of progress. But people haven't really been taking notice because until it can really impact your life, until it's ready for you, why does it really matter? It's so far just sort of been limited to a select group of people rather than the broader public. Oh, so that was good. It had that 25 speed limit sign, but it said maintaining speed for traffic flow. Yes, this issue that has been annoying the hell out of me for 3 years is finally fixed. Thank you, autopilot team. That is fantastic. But see, this is what I'm saying. We're really turning a corner here. The system's now gaining capabilities to solve issues that it's had for a very long time. And, I took my first Waymo ride in March 2021. That was, 2.5 years ago. And when I went and took that ride, I actually drove all the way out to Phoenix from here. I think it's about an 8-hour drive, just because I wanted to try my first driverless car ride. And so I went to Phoenix, and it was amazing to be in a driverless car for the first time. And I recorded a video, I put it on my YouTube. But since then, things have improved. Since then, I've actually tried a Waymo in San Francisco. And obviously San Francisco is dramatically more complicated than Phoenix. So they gave me access to that for 2 weeks. Now Waymo and Cruise have had their permit expanded. They can now operate 24/7 in the city and charge for rides. And I think they haven't really made any changes yet. But Waymo says they're going to start adding more people in from the public. And Cruise says that they're going to be expanding their service over time as well to include the daytime. Right now it's only at night. So there's major changes happening. And, meanwhile on the FSD side, we've gone from a situation with the early betas where you had to take over many times per drive, to a situation where now sometimes you can complete an entire drive without any input at all. And the corrections you do have to make are relatively minor, more likely to be just, hesitation rather than taking over for something that could cause a car crash. So is it 100% autonomous today? No. I want to be clear about that. Sometimes people get upset at me and they say, hey, you're saying autonomy is already solved. I'm not saying it's already solved. All I'm saying is tremendous progress is being made. I mean, just look at it. It's driving. I'm not doing anything. Using just cameras, it's able to figure out what's going on and what it needs to do. It's able to figure out the distance to that car and keep the perfect gap. Not too close, not too far. Just using cameras. This is low cost enough and simple enough to run all the time. So even when I'm driving, it can stop me if maybe I didn't stop in time for the car in front and I was going to bump into it. If there's a car coming from the other way, in terms of cross traffic, it can spot that and it can understand the difference between cross traffic that's not in my way and cross traffic that is on a collision course with my car. And it can respond appropriately. Look how it did that lane change. I mean, it's just incredible. So most people still aren't aware of this. People are actually spending millions of dollars to make sure they're not really aware of how much the technology is advancing. They want to spread fear. They want to say, this is actually dangerous. So most of the stories you'll hear in the news are, autonomous cars are terrible, Tesla's terrible. A lot of times someone's drunk or distracted and they sort of kind of make it seem like autopilot invented drunk driving or distracted driving. And, if a drunk driver, for example, crashes into somebody or, somebody is distracted and they hit something, they'll try and blame the autopilot. Which is kind of silly because I have autopilot on all the time. If I get in a crash, autopilot's going to be on. Does that mean that autopilot caused the accident? No. Maybe in some cases it could contribute, but if I'm using it as intended, if I'm paying attention, then there should be no problem. And it does a good job of monitoring for driver attention. Like, it's gotten really good. Like, even if I just use the screen like this, like I'm looking at the screen for too long instead of looking at the road, see? Please pay attention to the road. So it's gotten really good. And people don't realize just how important that part is. The AI that can see whether you're on your phone or whether you're looking at the screen or whether you're looking at the road. Like, just telling people to focus on the road, that's going to be huge. So, people are always blaming Tesla for distracted driving, saying, oh, they're causing distracted driving, when the reality is, look, distracted driving is a huge problem. And when people don't have autopilot, I mean, look at the cars around you when you're in traffic next time. They're all on their phone, not just the Teslas with autopilot. So when people are using FSD, that's the only time they actually can't use their phone or, have this sort of system that's trying to prevent them from doing it. Normally they just do it and nobody beeps at them. Nobody, tries to take away their FSD. So you see how it saw that car turning right and waited for them before continuing? So people are actually paying more attention when they're on FSD because of the driver monitoring system. And people don't really recognize that. Plus, honestly, the thing is just getting so good. Whether someone pays attention is becoming increasingly irrelevant. I already think it's time for them to get rid of the steering wheel nags. They're probably making things worse than better. And move to fully cabin camera. It's clearly past the point where it's the way to go. So yeah, I really think the ChatGPT moment is coming, where people realize that autonomy is no longer a technical challenge. It's been done. Is there still work to do? Yes. Is it still perfect? No. But we have the tools, we have real world experience, we have real vehicles out there in the world, all around the world. To say that this is just going nowhere, it's just not informed. You know, could you say, well, we wish it was happening faster? Yes. Everybody wishes it could happen tomorrow. But this is the most challenging thing we've ever attempted in the history of computer science, in my opinion. The input space is anything. Anything could happen right now. A rock could fall from the sky. And no matter what happens, the system needs to be able to handle it. So that's really challenging, to make sure literally anything could happen. And you need to interpret it and plan. Let me turn off my watch. Yeah, so, you know, the input space is anything. And look at how well it's doing. So far, I haven't given it any input. Alright, so we're going to make a right turn here. Looks like there are some cars coming. So the car waited for that car to pass. And there we go. So when's the ChatGPT moment going to be? I think with V12. I mean, they've got basically a complete re-architecture of the whole system. What you're seeing right now with 11.4.6, where it can already drive me around almost perfectly in most drives, this is going to look like a piece of junk compared to what the end-to-end system is going to do. It's really more simple, more dynamic. It's just a much better architecture that's going to allow it to get better faster and faster. So V12 combined with Dojo, combined with hundreds of thousands of users putting data into the system, it's going to create a flywheel. Okay. That was interesting. Huh. Well, that wasn't good. So, still some improvement needed. It looks like it wanted to make a left turn, but couldn't get there in time, and just sort of got into a weird state. So these are the kinds of challenges that happen, but it's getting better and better. It used to be even worse, if you can believe that. So this new architecture, if this is already getting to the point where it can handle many drives without intervention, just imagine what V12 is going to be able to do. Just imagine what they'll be able to do as they add more compute capacity, as they can try more different things. I think it's going to be really exciting. So I think V12, Dojo, the increasing number of users feeding data and interventions and feedback about different issues into the system, combined with just the wide release. You know, it's been so restricted in terms of the availability. It's, it should just be that you have any Tesla and you just tap a button and it turns on. Now, because it can do weird things like we saw, and you have to have a driver who's careful and understands it, they've sort of restricted it for that reason. And, maybe you could argue it's not even fully ready to just be part of the basic software, so that's what's limited them. But I think they're getting close to the point where it's just installed on every Tesla out of the door. And you just pay for it if you need to and just turn it on. You can even just pay for one ride maybe and try it out, and people can get a free trial. So that, I think, is important, availability. And not just making it available in the United States, but also making it around the world. The United States is only about, a third to 40% of Tesla sales. So the other 2/3 of Tesla's customers around the world in Asia and Europe, they don't have this. So they really need to launch it at least on the highway so people can see what their latest system is capable of. People really have no idea. They're using a system from years ago, and they have no idea how much better the new system from Tesla is and what their cars are capable of. So getting it out, installed on every car, making sure it's actually good enough to do that, and getting it deployed around the world, at least on the highway, right? Like if Europe doesn't want to let you make right and left turns, maybe that's understandable. I'm sure the regulation will get updated soon, but they should be fine with letting you use the new FSD beta neural nets on the highway at least, right? Okay, so this is an interesting situation. We got a broken red light, so got to be a little bit extra careful watching for cross traffic on that side. Looks like we're good. Cool. So that's what I think is needed for FSD to have a ChatGPT moment. Get out V12, utilize the power of Dojo, utilize the power of learning from the fleet, and get V12 out in the hands of a substantial portion of the 5 million Teslas out there. If you do that, millions of people around the world will experience self-driving. And when millions of people around the world experience self-driving, that's the ChatGPT moment, right? They said ChatGPT was the fastest to 100 million users. Well, if you could get, let's say, 5 million cars running FSD beta, and each of those cars showed 20 people, well, then you've got 100 million people who've experienced a self-driving car. And that's going to be kind of tough for Waymo or Cruise, given, Waymo has about 1,000 cars and Cruise has, I think, 392 cars. So it would take them a little while to give rides to 100 million people. But I think Tesla, they're mass producing these things at a crazy rate. They're making 2 million a year. And they've got about 4.5 million out there already. So that's really their strength, is mass production. They're making so many of these things. That's what sets them apart. Okay, so I had to press the accelerator there because it was at the yellow light, it was turning red, and it just wasn't moving. So I wanted to make sure it went through the light. Okay, here we got a pedestrian on the side of the road. Notice how we're moving over away as they get into their car. That's something that if the driver didn't see it, that could potentially avert a really bad collision. The AI is detecting something the driver's missing. So there you have it. There's FSD beta. It wasn't 100% perfect, but it's getting there. And, to say they're not making any progress, there's just an enormous amount of progress happening in the industry right now. It's impossible to ignore. So, A ChatGPT moment is coming. Mark my words. And I think it'll happen in less than 12 months. People are already starting to wake up to the fact that their expectations about this technology need to be reset. There's far more progress happening than people realize. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend.